The schedule has been released for the upcoming 2023-2024 NBA season, and the Boston Celtics have been gifted with a great schedule. Obviously, there are some stretches where the Boston Celtics are going to run into on the road that are going to be tough, but like any team, there are a great amount of home games that they can bounce back and be victorious in. So in this video on Celtics Digest, I will be going over the Celtics' important games of the regular season, games that you're going to want to mark with an X on your calendar. Make sure you're strapped and seated, ready to go for Celtics basketball. I will also be covering the news with Brad Stevens and his family. Something has just happened yesterday. So let's get into those two topics. I'm Bruce Veliz, and welcome to this video on Celtics Digest. First, we'll be starting with the Celtics schedule breakdown. This is basically where I'll be going over the important games for the Celtics that they'll be participating in this season, looking at every month and looking at 2 to 3 games possibly highlighted for each month. Now, starting off the season, the Celtics will be starting in October. That's when the regular season starts. And we have some preseason games that will be happening in the early months of October. The first preseason game is versus the Philadelphia 76ers. So that is something that you'll want to be paying attention to. But getting into the regular season, let's look at what we want to be focused on for the Boston Celtics. So coming up in the first month of October, we have 3 games in October for the regular season, and those 3 games I think are very important for the Boston Celtics. We have the games versus the New York Knicks on the 25th, a game versus the Miami Heat on the 27th, and a game versus the Washington Wizards on the 30th. So let's break down each of those 3 games a little bit here. So the first game is October 25th. That is away versus the New York Knicks. And the reason that's important is because it's the first game for the Boston Celtics. It's their first game of the season. Everyone's going to be wanting to watch, see how our players play. Hopefully, Kristaps Porzingis will be ready and available for that season opener. And the Celtics will be off to a great roll for a bunch of fans to be excited to see. Now diving into the 27th when they play the Miami Heat, that is our first home game. Obviously, Eastern Conference Finals rematch from the past 2 years is our first home game. Going to be a great and exciting one. We might see a trade happen before the regular season, so maybe, who knows, Miami might have some new faces. But if not, the Celtics should be expected to face a tough and gritty Miami team that just went to the championship and looking to continue to be one of these top teams in the Eastern Conference. And then lastly, we have our game on October 30th, which is versus the Washington Wizards. The reason this one is important is it's because it's on the road, and it will be Kristaps Porzingis' first game in Washington since the trade. So there will be some sort of video for Kristaps Porzingis, and there will be some rejoice for Kristaps Porzingis coming back into Washington, even though he did not spend a lot of his career there. He did help them out over the past year. So I do expect them to be some rejoice for Kristaps Porzingis, and it should be a nice homecoming game for him. Now, as we look into the month of November, we'll pull that slot back up. And there's only one game that I have marked for the month of November, and that is the game, the 22nd, versus the Milwaukee Bucks. Now, obviously, the Milwaukee Bucks are another tough team in the Eastern Conference, one of the top 3 teams in the Eastern Conference alongside the Celtics and the 76ers for the past couple years. So this will be a great game to watch. It is our first game versus the Milwaukee Bucks all year, and it is at home. So the Celtics fans will be ready to go against this Milwaukee team, as the other green team in the NBA will be coming into their building with one of the best players in the NBA, Giannis Antetokounmpo, who is looking for a revenge season. I expect the Celtics to try to take care of business in this game and hopefully to hold off the Milwaukee Bucks. Now, the other thing that is happening during November and December is the in-season tournament. If you missed my video on the in-season tournament, make sure you check that one out. It goes into detail over the Celtics opponents during the in-season tournament and my predictions. But personally, I think the Celtics are going to do solid in the in-season tournament. They play 4 games during that tournament, and they are versus the Nets, the Raptors, the Magic, and the Bulls for group play. And I think that obviously those games are important, but since I already covered them in another video, I didn't think I needed to cover them in this video. Now, looking back at this picture, we're going to look at December, which is the last month for this picture, and there are 2 games in December that I wanted to focus on, and that is the first versus the 76ers, and of course the Christmas game versus the Lakers. So the game on December 1st versus the 76ers is again another rivalry game for the Boston Celtics, as the 76ers are one of the Celtics' biggest rivals in the Eastern Conference. Obviously, they've had some turmoil with James Harden, so we'll have to see how that looks when we play them. Obviously, this is not our first game playing Philadelphia. It is just our first game playing Philadelphia at home. That's why having it is very important, even though every game versus the 76ers is important. Speaking on rivals, we have another rivalry game in the month of December that's important, and that is the Los Angeles Lakers. We play the Los Angeles Lakers on Christmas Day on December 25th, and I'm very excited to see that, as this is one of the key games that I put on the road. It is a Christmas game. It is a big rivalry game between the two rivals of each conferences, and I'm very excited to see how this is going to go. I think the Celtics and the Lakers both have big chances of making it far in the playoffs this season, and the last time they played on Christmas was when they played in the finals in 2008. So maybe this could be a precursor for a prediction of this year where we'll have another Celtics-Lakers finals, which would be a very exciting for the NBA and very exciting as a Celtics fan as well, going up against one of our arch nemesis. So now let's look at the rest of the months, looking at important games that I have marked, and we'll be looking at the months of January. January here has two games that I want to focus on, and that is the 17th versus the San Antonio Spurs and 19th versus the Denver Nuggets. So obviously the number one pick, Victor Wembanyama, will be making his talents to Boston on January 17th. I know the Garden will be sold out. Everyone will want to see him play, see how fascinating he is. This is obviously important, as the number one overall pick, who has been one of the best prospects since LeBron coming in, will be in Boston. Everyone in Boston that is a semi-Spurs fan or just wants to go see the number one overall pick play, a future generational talent of the NBA, you're going to want to be at this game. And if you're a Celtics fan, you're going to want to watch this at home. You're going to want to see Victor Wembanyama play against your team and showcase his skills. The next game is obviously the 19th, which is 2 days later, versus the Denver Nuggets. Now, obviously, the ex-NBA champions coming into Boston will be very exciting for the Celtics to see, and a potential matchup that could have happened last year in the finals if they had beaten the Miami Heat in Game 7. So this might be a potential matchup for the NBA Finals this year as well. Obviously, a dominant force in Nikola Jokic coming to Boston will be a huge thing, and the ex-NBA champions coming in will be another significant thing for Boston fans to want to go see. Coming up in February, we have two important games there as well. One against the Los Angeles Lakers again, and another game versus the Memphis Grizzlies. So the Los Angeles Lakers, I want to mention again, as this is the first time the Lakers come to Boston this year. And again, since it's a big rivalry, why not mention it? Anthony Davis just signed that big extension. LeBron's looking to be solid for this year. The Austin Reeves is looking great for Team USA. Like, this Lakers team could be a very big force. And coming into Boston, which historically has been great games in the past couple years, I think that this one is one you have to have marked on your calendar, as we get to see a revenge game from Christmas as well as the Lakers coming in to Boston. And February 4th is, I think, the most important game of the year. That is versus the Memphis Grizzlies. Yes, I said it is when Memphis comes to Boston for the first time. Marcus Smart will be back in Boston. You know, everyone will want to be at that game, or make sure watching that game at least. That game is going to be exciting. Marcus is going to get his video tribute. All the fans will be screaming for him when he gets called out on the court. It is going to be electrifying. I can't wait to watch that game. I am super excited for that one. Obviously, Memphis and the Celtics play earlier on in the season, where the Celtics go to Memphis, but I felt that them coming to Boston is more important as a fan, as you, even though you already see them play Marcus Smart, you get to see Marcus Smart back home finally. Lastly, coming up in March, we have two games, one versus the Golden State Warriors on the 4th, one on the 14th versus the Phoenix Suns. And then in the month of April, the last month of the year, we only have one game that's important, as the last month of basketball is usually the slow part, and that is the 14th versus the Wizards. So breaking down those last three games, obviously the game versus the Golden State Warriors, a rematch of the finals 2 years ago. Golden State and the Boston Celtics, even though we haven't been rivals in the past years, we've had some very successful and close games, going back to the IT days back in 2015, 2016. So I'm sure that the Boston Celtics will be looking forward to playing against these Golden State Warriors team, and especially since we already had that finals 2 years ago, I still think they're hungry to want to compete against this Warriors team. Same thing with the Phoenix Suns. Obviously, the Phoenix Suns bringing Kevin Durant, getting Bradley Beal. I think that the Phoenix Suns are going to be a juggernaut in the Western Conference, and for them to come to Boston, I think will be a very historic game, as two powerhouses from each side will be going at each other, and especially it will be happening in Boston, so you'll want to make sure you pay attention to that. And then the last game is obviously the last game of the season, the 14th of April versus the Washington Wizards, where the Wizards will come into Boston, play, and that's just an important game as it's the last game of the season. You want to make sure you're invested all the way through. You want to check the last game before we get into playoffs and get strapped up for the exciting part of the postseason. So honestly, the schedule looks pretty solid. Obviously, I just named 13 key games to make sure you want to watch and mark on your calendar. And lastly, we'll be going over Brady Stevens continuing his journey in college basketball. Brady Stevens has decided to go to Notre Dame, and Brad Stevens' son is committing to Notre Dame. As you can see, he was a senior at Wesley High School, and he is doing good in basketball for them. He's a reliable long-range shooter who can hit threes in a variety of ways. He cleans mechanics and needs very little space to get attempts off. Makes trades at a great volume when coming off screens or putting up shots, and shows glimpses of being a pull-up threat from beyond the arc, which is honestly great for Brady Stevens. Honestly, having Brad Stevens get his family into the scheme of basketball and having them play is honestly going to make him happy, and potentially we could see Brady Stevens being a sleeper pick for the Boston Celtics in future years near the ends of draft classes if Brad wants to bring his son into Boston. Obviously, his son has grown up in Boston since Brad's been coaching here, and now he's the GM. He's been instilled into Boston, been a huge Celtics fan, so maybe he'd want to play for the Celtics one day, and that could be a cool storyline to have with the Boston Celtics, bringing his son in and having him play with his own team. I think that would make a great storyline for the NBA, and I think it would be very cool to see. Obviously, the Notre Dame coach obviously worked with the Boston Celtics a little bit, so I think that was a little bit of a push for his son to go to Notre Dame as he had some connections there. But I think it would be cool to see Brad Stevens' son get a shot in college, not this year, but the next year. So let me know what you guys think of the Celtics schedule breakdown of the important games. Do you think that the games I pointed out were important, or do you think that some of them were just kind of some fodder games? Honestly, I think that the Celtics are going to have a great record this season, and even though the schedule might be a little bit tougher than usual years, I think that we're still going to finish atop of the Eastern Conference and be ready to make a deep playoff run. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Always make sure to leave a like and hit subscribe. If you enjoy Celtics Digest content, we're here making videos all the time for the Celtics, so make sure to keep tapping in. I'm Bruce Veliz, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.